This is PIX on Politics Daily with Dan Mannarino.
Hey everybody, welcome to PIX on Politics Daily. I'm Dan Mannarino, and here we are, November 6th. Okay, and it has been quite the week, right? We had the big election night on Tuesday. Obviously, you guys are all caught up to speed on where things stand, right? In the race for New York City Mayor, Zohran Mamdani, easily winning the election there. Over in New Jersey, we have Mikey Sherrill, who is now the governor-elect in New Jersey. And that race that was supposed to be super tight really wasn't. I mean, Mikey Sherrill ran away with it. And there's a lot of conversations happening right now about a potential, blue wave, because it wasn't just New York, New Jersey. There was Virginia. There was a prop in California that passed, all things going the way the Democrats wanted to. But there is a larger conversation beyond that, and that becomes who is the face of the Democratic Party. And we've talked to a lot of experts along the way. Do you support Zohran Mamdani as the face of the Democratic Party? Hakeem Jeffries was just questioned about that, and he was like, well, no. Zohran Mamdani himself saying, well, no, I'm not the face of the Democratic Party. So, but there is a conversation, meaning moving towards the midterms, towards the next presidential election, as to what the party looks like as a whole, both with an individual and a philosophy, right? There's been a lot of talk about democratic socialism, what exactly that means. Let me bring in Councilmember Tiffany Cabán right now. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Great to see you as well. And so, I'm opening this conversation up the way about democratic socialism because there's been so much conversation about, well, what exactly does it mean? I think it kind of gets lost in the greater conversation of socialism versus capitalism. And was Zohran Mamdani, is he a Democrat? Or, Andrew Cuomo was framing him as a socialist, President Trump framing him as a communist. So many different terms. And I think the actual description of what a democratic socialist gets lost in the message. So help me understand.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be my pleasure as a fellow democratic socialist.
Yeah.
Democratic socialism is simply a politics that organizes our communities and the economy democratically to benefit the majority and not just the increasingly wealthy few. And so what does that mean in the context of government? It means that the job of government is to support the workers who make our society run. And that's a fundamentally different orientation than the top-down politics of the past. So it means a government that's focused on dignity, on affordability, things like childcare, healthcare, education, good jobs. So if that sounds good to you, then you don't need the label. You don't have to call yourself Democratic Socialist, but it's certainly the kind of leadership that you're seeking. Yeah.
So let me ask you what you thought. Many times along the campaign, I would talk to Andrew Cuomo and I would say to him, you said you're fundamentally that you're a Democrat, you lost the primary. And he's like, well, I lost the primary because I am a true Democrat and Zohran Mamdani isn't a Democrat. He's a socialist. And I said, right, but Democrats voted for him. And it became this kind of back and forth between, well, why does Andrew Cuomo think he's a Democrat and why does he think that Zohran Mamdani isn't a Democrat?
I mean, it's being stuck in the past, because the reality is that Democratic leadership, not just in New York, but across the country, has been banging their heads against the wall, saying, how do we bring the party together? How do we grow it? And we just saw just a masterclass in how to do it. And so the lesson of this moment is that if you want to build and grow the Democratic Party and enough so that it can take on authoritarianism and fascism and all of the different hate and fear that is being fomented by a Trump administration, then it's knowing that your base of the party is a diverse working class base that is galvanized by leaders who are going to promise dignity and affordability with a clear message and compassion and joy, and that's what we should be striving to do, no matter what you identify as yourself. His politics embodied one that reflected the lived realities, challenges, and hopes and dreams of working class folks who have seen the middle class disappear, and it feels so far out of reach. So much so that they came out and voted in record numbers, and more important than that, they were civically engaged in a way that was unprecedented. Yeah, and 4,000 volunteers.
Exactly, and it was historic numbers in terms of who turned out but people often say that New York City is kind of its own country when it comes to politics and way people vote, and that New York City isn't just a broader idea of what the party is around the country. And so if you were to take New York City out of the equation, and look at what happened in New Jersey and Virginia. Those were more moderate, centrist Democrats that won elections there. I often spoke to Mikey Sherrill, who wouldn't endorse or support Zohran Mamdani, saying she was focused on her election. And then you have folks like Chuck Schumer, who never endorsed in the election of the city he lives in. So I guess moving forward, how do you see the Democratic Party as a whole?
So I think it's actually worth mentioning that in between being a public defender and an elected official, I was a senior political strategist for elections across the country with the Working Families Party. I have helped run races in every kind of jurisdiction that you could imagine. And while the platform is not going to be the same, what we did see was people focused on, whether they were in Virginia, New Jersey, California, Texas, that they were focused on a message that was about dignity and affordability and understanding that that's what's going to bring people in. And here in New York City, we even found just the demographics that were won. Right, he won overwhelmingly Black voters, Latina voters. He won young men from ages 18 to, I think, the 18 to 29 demographic by really large margins. He won people making less than $50,000 a year. If that doesn't tell you something about the message and how it would resonate across the country, I don't know what else would.
Yeah, it's just one of those questions where I guess folks right now are already saying that Zohran Mamdani is the boogeyman. And I'm sure you heard this, right? That Republicans are going to plaster his face around the country saying, well, look what you all voted for. This is what's going to happen if you continue to vote Democrat.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, if that attack of like how scary it is that somebody is going to work really hard to try to deliver affordable rent, somebody that's going to work really hard to make sure that you have childcare, because at this point, childcare payments are another rent payment on top of what you're doing, right? It's just an interesting thing, right? This is powerful for our democracy. Yeah. They can attack it, but the reality is that he's not a boogeyman. He won back the voters that we lost that didn't show up during the Trump election, right? It wasn't that there was a Republican resurgence across New York State. It was that a lot of Democrats stayed home. Well, they came out in full force. And also, not just here in New York City, but across the country, there actually are a lot of Democratic socialists elected to office. And there are communities that are re-electing them to the office, understanding that their governance, their leadership isn't scary, but actually has materially benefited their everyday lives. And we're going to continue to see that. New York is going to have a wonderful opportunity to spotlight that.
So let me ask you this, because, and thank you for kind of laying all that out. And I always say, give somebody a chance before you start judging where exactly things stand. But I guess the two of you almost differ right out of the gate, because Zohran, Mayoral-elect Mamdani came out and said that he supported the housing measures, right? And you voted against the housing measures. So how do you kind of see that playing out?
I did. And the reality is that we align on a million and one things. Nobody is going to agree on absolutely everything. I love the Department of Community Safety he's going to build out. I'm a former public defender. I care about real public safety. He's going to champion that. I care about housing. I have actually delivered a lot of affordable housing, the most that we've seen in a decade in my district in Queens, because that is a priority in my agenda. The difference for me is that the way that the ballot measures were laid out, they changed the charter. And I believe in the balance of powers. We are already in our charter, which is our city's constitution. We favor executive power. I'm a part of the legislature, and it's important that we maintain a level of power for checks and balances. And the proposals, while maybe good intentioned, do shift more power to the executive branch, taking it away from the legislature. But at the end of the day, there are a million and one things that we have to do on the housing front to get to where we need to be. And there's a lot of synergy and alignment there that I'm really eager to partner with him and his administration on. Yeah.
And some people that I had spoken to along the way had said, well, this was something by Mayor Adams to stick it to the city council and give himself more power. Now that Mayor Adams is no longer going to be in office, do you think that Mayor-elect Mamdani is going to say, well, I see how the proposals are, but I want to work with the council?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be the expectation. And, as much as there is this beautiful synergy around our politics, our values, our priorities, there also, our job is to be oversight and to check that mayoral power when it's appropriate, to make sure that our local voices are heard. Like there is benefit to having sort of this broad citywide view to how we do zoning and development. And at the same time, it is really, really important to have the hyper local information impact that gets lost when you're looking at the whole. And so to be able to at least come to the table and talk about it will be huge, because we did not have that kind of relationship under an Adams administration.
I'm talking to you right now while the Somos conference is going on in Puerto Rico. And a lot of people say that's where a lot of, you got to be in the room where it happens. You got to, the wheeling and dealings go on. There's deals that are made, and there's a big race going on right now within the city council, and that is the race for speaker. And you know, I had to explain to some folks that they don't get to vote for the speaker, that it's the city council members who pick their speaker. And so there's a lot of coalescing around certain individuals. Where do you stand?
So, yeah, I mean, obviously, job number one was to make sure that Zohran Mamdani was our next mayor. Mission accomplished. And yeah, we really are shifting focus, and it's a place of gathering where it's not just elected officials, but it's advocacy organizations, it's labor partners, all these folks who have a vested interest in who the leader of the council is. But ultimately, it is the members who vote. And, you know, at a time when we have the most diverse, most progressive city council that has been focused on working class families for the last 4 years, we want to make sure that our leader reflects that they are highly confident in putting together a team, right, and are able to use our central staff, which is a very large staff, to help expand the opportunities and the work that we as council members want to be able to do. And personally, I think it's going to be really important to have a speaker 10 toes down that's going to stand up with our sanctuary city status, that's going to stand up to Trump. It's going to make sure that nobody is scapegoated, that we don't leave anybody behind, and is going to be ready to lead that fight, to hold down and protect our people every single day, because we know that those attacks are coming. And I always think that there's value in having the lived experience of the people who are struggling the most across our city. So, you know, people of color, immigrants, queer people, and just understanding that those are the things that we've got to lift to the top.
So listening to you say all that and lay out what you're looking for in the next speaker, I mean, I'm going to ask you who you're supporting, because it would sound like with everything you kind of laid out there, that a few names have popped up, but Crystal Hudson being one of them. Who are you supporting?
So we are all coming together. We basically try to figure out what a voting block looks like. And I want to make sure that I'm not just prioritizing what I want to see, but seeing what my colleagues that I work closely really want to see. What I will say about Crystal Hudson is that she is a phenomenal colleague and leader. She puts together an excellent team. I love being able to say that her team is one where we don't get a lot of resources. We need more to be able to deliver. And her team and herself, so they punch above their weight. And we would be very lucky to have her leading our council. I'll say that much for sure.
If that's not an endorsement, let me just say that. Let me just ask you this, because this is something I actually, you can educate me right now. When does that actually happen?
So the charter mandates that the first meeting at the beginning of the new term in January will be to vote for our speaker. So at some point before then, it's a race to 26 votes. That's how many votes are needed from the body, and a lot can change between now and then. But it is the first action that the council officially takes after being sworn in once again.
Got it. Good stuff. Great conversation. I want to keep talking to you next year in 2026 as well. So keep on coming back. Okay.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Good to see you. Have a good time at Somos. Let us know what happens. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Good to see you, council member. Good conversation there, everybody. And on Picks on Politics Friday night, I'll be speaking with the new comptroller-elect, Mark Levine. Plus, we have our panel discussing all of the events of this week. So we'll see you back on Picks on Politics tomorrow.